Welcome! In this part, we will talk about the multiple responses and datasets in Mockintosh. Instead of being a plain string or a JSON object, the response field in an endpoint can also be a list of those too. We call that multiple responses. It enables you to simulate interesting scenarios like an endpoint returns different responses, or a sequence of responses for multiple requests. Let's imagine that you have a microservice that can handle a finite amount of background tasks, and you can push tasks to that service via an endpoint. These tasks are some time-critical tasks, like a stock exchange order. The microservice is overloaded when there are more than 3 tasks are running simultaneously. The endpoint that you use for ordering tasks returns 202 accepted if it's not overloaded. Otherwise, it returns 503 server is busy. How would you simulate such a scenario without having control over the API or spending a huge effort to clone that API just to test a simple case like this deterministically? That's where Mockintosh comes in. With a Mockintosh configuration like this, you can easily replicate the scenario without wasting your precious time. This endpoint responds to the first 3 requests with 202, then it responds to the 4th request with 503. Notice how looping is disabled by setting multi-responses looped field to false. This makes the endpoint to respond with 410 gone after the 4th request. Note that the responses are looped forever if the multi-responses looped is not supplied or set to true. Imagine the previous scenario again, but this time you want to have the control over the state of microservices busyness. To achieve that, Mockintosh have tags. Using tags, you can change the state of a looped response list to make it only respond with a subset of the response list. You can set the tag through command line interface or by requesting to the management API. Datasets in Mockintosh, similar to multiple responses, is a list of variables that are injected into templating under response field, which is useful to test a scenario like a series of sequential responses. For example, there is an API endpoint that sometimes returns an integer or a floating point number, and some other times it returns a string for a JSON field. And you want to make sure that your client is able to handle all these 3 data types correctly. Datasets in Mockintosh is the solution to replicate such cases deterministically. To achieve that, you define a dataset with 3 elements, 5, 3.14, and the Hello World string. So Mockintosh will iterate through this dataset for each individual request. Similar to tagged responses, using the tag field in datasets is also possible, such that you can set the state of this dataset and make the endpoint to return always a string after a certain point of time. You can find the examples given in this video at the description. I hope that you liked it. See you later again in a new video. Take care. Goodbye.